this is Yana Smakula for simonsastamp.com and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I'll show you one of the easier ways to create beautiful and clean galaxy background using Simon's Seeing Stars stamp set, white pigment ink pad, and blue cardstock, and also a couple of distress ink pads. This is really one of the simpler and easier ways to create a galaxy on a card, and I'm hoping you'll join me and give this idea a try after you watch this video. I'm starting by placing the stars I want to use for my galaxy on an A2 top folding card base made out of Simon's soft navy cardstock. Now both the cardstock and the stamp set that I'm using today come in August 2016 card kit, but you can also get these items individually if you'd like. So I have my sentiment, it's a two-part sentiment, and I also have a few stars that look like constellations. These are very beautiful and truly are perfect for a galaxy background. My sentiment reads, "I miss you, though we're far apart, we're sleeping under the same stars." I think it's very romantic. Now, this stamp set has several sentiments like this, plus it also features a few solid star stamps that are always great to use as little fillers on any project. Here's another card I made using this same stamp set, but slightly different approach and slightly different supplies. I heat embossed my sentiment in the center and then added a lot of stars around it to fill in the background. I also blended chipped sapphire distress ink around the edges and added some shine and sparkle with glitter pens. And I just wanted to mention that I used gold embossing powder for this card, and I'll be using rose gold embossing powder for the card I'm making in this video. And you'll really see the difference in these two embossing powders later on. So I'm going to go ahead and mount all of the star stamps onto clear block by placing the block on top of them and pressing down. By doing this, I will save a little bit of time when I go to stamp my background. I'm going to set these stars aside for now, and we'll also mount the sentiment stamps onto another clear block. Next, I'm using my anti-static powder tool and prepping the surface of my paper to make sure I eliminate the static and grease and oils from my fingers. This will help to keep embossing nice and clean. I'm using Versamark embossing ink. This is clear sticky ink, and I'm going to ink up my sentiment stamps first and stamp onto the card base somewhat closer to the top left corner. Next, I'm going to add rose gold embossing powder. Please note that I am not going to emboss this right away. I'm going to add all of my stamping first, we'll add embossing powder everywhere, and we'll only after that emboss this card. Next, I'm inking my star stamps that are mounted onto that clear block and stamping this onto the card base. Again, I'm going to add embossing powder, and this is the same one, and I will not heat emboss anything just yet. I'm going to use again the same cluster of stars. We'll stamp it onto the card base. I am rotating this slightly, and again we'll add embossing powder. At this point, I'm going to break up my cluster and we'll start using individual images to make sure I fill the entire background. So I'm stamping a large star. I'm covering that with embossing powder. Next, stamping a smaller star and a little star triangle, and again covering that with embossing powder. I'm going to continue stamping images in Versamark ink and adding embossing powder to this background until I have the entire piece covered with stars. I'm also going to use small solid images to fill in any gaps. Once I have my entire background stamped and covered with rose gold embossing powder from Simon's Stamp, I'm going to heat emboss it with my heat tool. By heat embossing it all at once, I'm minimizing the amount of heat I'm adding here, and therefore I am minimizing the amount of warping I will have. I'm going to get my heat tool good and hot, and we'll go ahead and melt the powder. And here's a look at this embossed background. I really love this particular embossing powder because it shines when the light hits it. Here's a quick comparison to the gold embossing powder, and you can see that that one is much shinier, but this one does give that beautiful shine where there's artificial light hitting it. And now we're ready to let magic happen. I'm going to use Simon's white pigment ink pad and a mini round ink blending tool, and I'm going to blend some white ink in the center of my panel. I'm making sure to make the central part of this panel much lighter, almost white. Next, I'm going to use my distress inks, and I'm starting with Seedless Preserves and adding a bit of purple to the background. Because this card base is dark, I need to do a lot less ink blending, and I need to apply a lot less effort and spend less time while adding color to my entire background. Next, I'm going to use peacock feathers and again add a little bit of ink here and there. I'm using a very light hand here and I am not applying much pressure. I'm also not tapping any ink off to the side. Because this card base is so dark, there's no need for that. Another color I'm going to use here is chipped sapphire, and I'm using it to darken the edges of this card. You can also use black soot for this, or use both colors if you like. And now this really does look like a beautiful galaxy background. I still love galaxy backgrounds that are made from white on a white piece of cardstock, but I really wanted to share this simpler and easier way with you today. I also added a tiny bit of wild honey here and there just for a pop of yellow. And by the way, these colors of ink are the colors I usually use for regular galaxy backgrounds that I make. So by first adding a little bit of that white pigment ink, I was able to create a placeholder for other colors and make it appear like this was made from a white piece of cardstock. I also used my Wink of Stella glitter pen and added a generous amount of glitter to some of the stars on my card. Here's a closer look at this heat embossed galaxy background card. I really love this shine and shimmer, and that bit of white in the center makes all the difference. You can also add some ink drops to this card if you like, maybe some additional white or even black drops if you want this to look more realistic, but I really love this simple galaxy look. You can find the list of supplies I used for this project down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye!